I didn't knock. The gate was open, the laughter inside too loud for a house that once belonged to my daughter. I walked in, and what I saw behind the house carved something sharp into my chest. She was chained in her own backyard, her knees pressed into dirt, her face gaunt, her hands trembling as she bent over a metal dog bowl. She looked up when she heard me, eyes hollow, lips split from thirst. Her mother's blood, my blood. And they fed her like an animal. Her in-laws stood on the porch, smug, arms folded. One of them sneered, "Your blood deserves this." I didn't speak, I didn't shout. I only crouched, broke the chain with my hands, and lifted her to her feet. She leaned into me, too weak to walk alone. I put her in my car, shut the door, drove away without looking back. But halfway down the road I made the call. When they turned on the news, their son's body was already found in his office. And the silence between my daughter and me said everything that needed to be said. I kept my eyes on the road, my grip steady on the wheel. Her head rested against the window, eyes half closed, body swaying with every turn. Not a word escaped her lips. She had been starved of more than food, starved of dignity, of humanity. The betrayal cut deeper than anything I had known. She had married into their family believing she was safe, believing their promises. I had believed them too. Their polite dinners, their empty smiles, their vows to protect her as one of their own. Lies. They wanted her broken because she carried my blood, because she was mine before she was theirs. And now she carried scars I couldn't unsee. The silence in the car thickened. Every mile dragged the truth across my mind. She hadn't called me, hadn't told me. Shame had sealed her lips shut. They had conditioned her to believe this treatment was deserved. The thought tasted like poison. I didn't rage. I calculated. That night, after settling her into a safe bed, I sat in the dark with her phone clutched in my hand. She hadn't spoken, but her phone did. I scrolled through messages, images, notes. I saw how they mocked her, how they controlled every move, dictated her meals, tracked her steps. One thread stopped me, a message chain with her husband. His words sharp, casual, like instructions to a servant. Keep her outside, she doesn't belong inside. Not real family. Each word was a blade pressed against my patience. I studied patterns, his office hours, his private meetings, his late-night calls that he thought went unnoticed. I didn't drink, didn't sleep. I only watched, observed. My mind sharpened into a scalpel. By dawn, I knew everything about his movements. I didn't need to touch him. I only needed to know where to press. The next afternoon, news broke of his body found slumped across his desk. The report was careful with words, suspected suicide, no signs of forced entry. But I knew better. I had seen the photographs my contacts sent before the police arrived. A single note on the desk, short, incomplete, more questions than answers. The family would never know what it meant. They would never know who had placed it there. But I knew. And when the images reached his parents, their smugness dissolved into raw panic. Their empire cracked. Their whispers turned to screams. Meanwhile, I sat across from my daughter as she stirred a bowl of warm soup, eyes still haunted but alive. She didn't ask what I had done. She didn't need to. 3 days later, I returned to their house, alone. They opened the door, faces pale, eyes hollow from nights without sleep. The news still rolled in the background, replaying their son's downfall. I stepped inside without invitation. No words, just silence. I laid a copy of the police report on their table. Their son's name printed in black. Official. Final. Their hands shook as they read. One of them broke into sobs. The other slammed a fist against the table. I didn't flinch. "This," I said quietly, "is the cost of chaining my blood." The words landed heavier than any scream. Their faces twisted, collapsing under the weight of truth. And then I left them there, to rot in the silence they had built for themselves. My daughter slept soundly that night for the first time in months. I stood by the window, watching the dark horizon. No satisfaction, no triumph, just clarity. I hadn't saved her. She had been forced to survive long before I arrived. All I had done was strip her captors of the illusion of power. And in doing so, I stripped myself of something too. The part of me that once believed in family, in trust, in promises sealed over dinners and handshakes. All of it was dust. I understood one thing with brutal certainty. They had tried to reduce her to nothing. But in the end, it was them who were reduced.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and comment. Subscribe now to Cheating Stories Insight World for more amazing stories.